Thank you, Sanjay. I was just checking before coming in what is the latest tally. It's 8,012 villages today. And as you know, it keeps changing every day. But thank you very much, and good to be amongst old friends. There was a time I would usually be sitting there and listening to other people talk. But it's always a pleasure to meet people who understand the world of finance, understand what's happening, what's the change that's happening in the country. And I think in a big sense, day before yesterday's figures for the month of April and for the Q4 15-16 have endorsed the path that Prime Minister Modi and his team had embarked on 2 years ago, when we decided that we'll rather focus on the long haul and create a sustainable foundation on the back of which India can grow for years and years to come, rather than look at a short-term solution, a short-term way forward. In fact, I still recall in the days in opposition when we used to strongly criticize the fact that India let its fisc loose in the period 2008 to 10 very drastically, almost going down from 2.9% to, if I remember correctly, 6.1% within a span of 1 year in terms of fiscal deficit. Current account deficits were at all-time highs, interest rates were high, inflation was high. And that short-term couple of years where India almost felt like it was growing at 9% actually caused more damage to the country over the next 4 or 5 years than helped us in the long run. When this government came in, we decided we'd rather not take that path of fiscal profligacy, not look at short-term gain, but look at a longer haul. And even though it may take some time, but we'd rather set the system right, rather set the foundation in good shape, ready to take on the challenges of the day, challenges of tomorrow. And I'm delighted that within a global crisis of sorts, where almost all countries, all large economies are facing severe stress, most developed countries, and if one was to look not only at economic growth, even at consumption, even at capital investment, are finding a severe stress on their numbers. India continues to be that oasis where 7.9% last quarter, and personally I don't think it will be any different in the days going forward. In fact, just before coming in, I was reading some of what my office had sent in about my comments in the period November, December of last year. I was giving a series of interviews during that period. I don't recall why I would have been giving so many interviews, but they just sent me some data points, including a report that came out in Economic Times on 24th of December last year, where I was asked by Himanshu what I see in the future going forward. And at that point I'd mentioned that I see 6 months from then the India story really emerging, really taking off on the back of all this foundational change that has happened. Reading yesterday's newspapers just as soon as I landed back into India yesterday morning was indeed a delight, because the numbers that came out day before, truly gratifying in terms of you get the satisfaction that what you set out to do, what you planned, is taking shape, is bearing fruit, and is being acknowledged and recognized, even by statistics, which sometimes can be very, very harsh on you. But a situation where you have low inflation numbers, there can be a periodical month or two of ups and downs. Fortunately, the WPI has now gone into at least positive territory after 17 months. I had almost got worried about a GDP deflator type situation with the way the WPI was continuously falling. And in fact, if one goes to see the last 2 years, nominal GDP, in some sense, we felt the impact of a GDP deflator on nominal GDP in the last 2 years. But in an overall context, the fact that we've been able to keep inflation reasonably under check, consumer price index also is less than 50% of what we inherited. Current account deficit possibly at about in and around 1% right now. Clearly, we need to see lower interest rates, but that's for somebody else to decide, and we'll wait and watch what happens next week. More importantly, the fact that Q4 has shown 7.9% growth. Monsoon projections look to be good. And the latest IMD forecasts seem to suggest a much more than normal monsoon, which could not, it's of course music to our ears, but it could also be a reverse problem in some parts of India in terms of flooding. But that apart, I think floods are still easier to handle than drought. Having seen 3 years of bad monsoons, India clearly is looking for a good monsoon. Projections look good, so I see this year certainly crossing 8%. If the monsoon really remains good and we can see agriculture grow at 7 or 8%, which is clear possibility that I see given the last 2 years of subdued growth, it's very much possible we may even do better than 8%. And to my mind, the strong foundation that has been created has set India on the trajectory for a double-digit growth. This time around, not for 1 or 2 years or 3 years, not on the back of short-term liquidity injection or monetary policy, fiscal expansion or loosening the monetary policy. It'll be more on the back of sustained ideas, a very clear vision, razor focus on outcomes, huge amount of transparency in the system, a lot of confidence building measures, all adding up to create several decades of double-digit growth for this country, which is what we are planning for, which is what we are all working towards. In my own sector, we've had reasonably good years, the last 2 years, against what the legacy was in 2014. In fact, most papers almost called it baptism by fire, with the Delhi grid collapsing soon after a thunderstorm, 3 or 4 days after I took office. And since then, the continuous stream of issues surfacing, the lack of fuel for most coal and gas-based plants, 2/3 of India's coal-based plants without fuel, most of the 24,000 megawatt of gas-based plants lying idle, lack of adequate transmission to different parts of the country, very poor growth in the renewable energy sector. All of these things, and then the September 24th, 2014 verdict, cancelling 204 coal mines, adding to the stress at that point of time, in some sense, to me was a godsend. Because when all of these problems compound and come onto you at the same time, it reinvigorates your efforts to try and do more and try and set these problems right for the long term. And I think that's where circumstances helped. All of these issues gave us an opportunity to convert them into these challenges into a great future for the country where we can set the systems right for the long haul. And today, if one goes to see the last 2 years' efforts, the focus being on fuel, the focus being on transmission ability, the focus being on setting the DISCOMs right through the Ujjwal DISCOM Assurance Yojana, the Uday program that by now everybody, I hope, has read and learnt about. And in the Q&A, don't ask me the same sometimes silly questions. I've on more than one occasions requested people to only ask me questions on Uday if you have studied the Uday program. Otherwise, most often than not, I'm asked the same question again and again and again, and I've got bored of answering those questions. But clearly, to my mind, Uday brings to fore the most comprehensive program ever undertaken to set this power sector right, particularly the DISCOMs. And just so that everybody is clear, we have not only addressed the legacy, the past problems that were inherited. We've not only set a very clear roadmap, what needs to be done in the next 3 years, and we are supporting that through significant central government measures also, with clear lines of demarcation, what the state will do, what the center will do, what the DISCOM will do, a responsibility matrix, an agreement with each of the entities, committing timelines and what they will do. Those agreements put on the website for the people, for all of you to read, know exactly what's going to happen, and then monitor the performance. Hold us accountable to what we are saying. And at the end of the roadmap, a hard budget constraint for the future, so that no state DISCOM can once again slide back to the old days of losses and problems. So a very clear constraint that no bank will finance these losses in the future. If at all you make a loss, it's at your own peril. You take 50% onto your state deficit. You give a state government guarantee to fund the balance 50%. And both these things put together are enough of a deterrent for any well-meaning, sensible state. Despite that, if a state wants to go haywire, then God save the state and the people of that state. That's something which we in the center may not be able to find a solution for. But fortunately, the people of India have a solution for that, because every 5 years we have to go back with a report card to the people and get their vote. And to my mind, I don't see any problem in any of the states joining and enjoying the fruits of Uday, more so because it has a win-win for every stakeholder. And I see the Uday program actually helping us turn around this sector, not for the present, but for the long-term future as well. In some sense, if you recall, the 2002 program had provided for that tripartite agreement between the Reserve Bank of India, the central public sector undertakings, and the state government undertakings related to power, all the DISCOMs and GENCOs and TRANSCOs. Now that one tripartite agreement was a game changer for this sector. That's what helped Coal India turn around. That's what helped NTPC, Power Grid become outstanding organizations. And that sustains to date. And it is that one piece of document, that one agreement which brought a constraint on the state that you'll have to pay for whatever you purchase, be it raw material, be it power, be it transmission ability. That one document changed the face of the government companies, the public sector undertakings. And since then, they have continued to perform well. To my mind, Uday does the same thing, this time around, plugging the leakages at the state level. And you'll be happy to know that that tripartite agreement has not had to be invoked even once in 14 years. Not even once. No central public sector undertaking had to actually go to RBI and claim money, because that deterrent was good enough to prevent states from going haywire. In some sense, the current program has that same element of deterrence, which I believe will help the states and the DISCOMs turn around the operations and operate in a more honest manner, in a more prudent manner. Renewables, of course, is a story that most of you are probably well aware of by now. India has embarked on the world's largest renewable energy program as a part of our conscious efforts to leave behind a better planet for the next generation. Last year, we did about 21 gigawatts of solar power project bidding, which has been probably the largest program embarked in solar energy so far, and has brought down prices by about 40%, almost making it today at par with any new coal-based power plant. And in some sense, providing states not only energy security, but also a fixed price power purchase contract for 25 years. Something they cannot get with gas, they cannot get with coal, with nuclear, with any of the other forms of energy. So really the states are providing energy security for themselves when they buy renewable energy. So not only is it good for the environment, but it's also great for energy security, because come what may, howsoever much there may be a problem, unions may go on strike, you may have a problem in transporting your raw material, gas prices may go up internationally, a foreign country may refuse to give us uranium at the right time that we need it. Despite all of these possibilities, the sun is one person we can bank on very safely. It's going to rise and shine through the day in India for all times to come, and gives a lot of comfort and security to the people of India as we expand our renewable energy program. Prices of power, keeping them affordable, have been an important ingredient of our program. I believe across the country today, power prices have remained stable, have almost gone down by 60 or 70% in South India. Most of the states of South India, which had huge transmission problems, are today flush with power. You have 24/7 power in almost all the southern states. Karnataka had a little problem because of hydro being down in a big way in that state last year. So Bangalore possibly and some parts of Karnataka had a little stress. Other than that, today I was on the phone with Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, and I must tell you, within 6 or 8 months of his becoming Chief Minister, we were together able to convert Andhra Pradesh into a power surplus state from the bad old days of almost 50% power cut. 6 or 8 months is all that it took. We revived the gas plants there, we added transmission ability there, we increased the supply of coal to the coal-based power plants, and he improved the distribution infrastructure at the local level and was able to obviously couple that with our energy efficiency program, which Andhra was the first to take off on. And we were able to convert a energy deficient state into a 24/7 guaranteed power state. And I think most parts of India today have the ability, should they want to buy any amount of power. And that's what our mobile apps in some sense help you to get, a real-time update on what's happening on the power sector. The Garv app tells you what's happening on rural electrification. These 18,452 villages which did not have electricity as on 1st April 2015, mind you, were the worst villages to reach out to. Some were in dense forests, some were on the top of mountains, some were in Maoist and terrorist-affected areas, Naxalite-affected areas. And after all, it took the country 7 decades after independence to reach power to these villages. So you can imagine they can't be simple to reach out. And I have pictures on the Garv app as the people, my young soldiers, the Gramin Vidyutikaran Abhyantas, young boys and girls just out of engineering college who've been deployed to go and inspect all the work and put it on the website so that all of you know exactly what's happening right, what's happening wrong. And states who have to implement these programs, ultimately in a federal structure, I am dependent on the states, are put on notice that your work is being monitored and the people are going to hold you accountable through these reports. That level of transparency that we've taken governance to has helped almost all people engaged in the power sector become very conscious of their responsibilities. Vidyut Prava, another app which helps you know real-time basis what the price of power in each state is at which they can buy power from the power exchange. The Ujala app tells you exactly how many LED bulbs have been sold by the government company, a company which used to sell 600,000 bulbs in a year before Prime Minister Modi took charge. Today selling 600,000 bulbs every day at prices which are barely 20% of what it was, rather less than that, 17% of what they were 2 years ago, 83% reduction in prices. So all of these various initiatives are coming together to create an enabling environment which gives me the confidence to project that at least in the power sector, as against a target of 2022, by which time we had promised the people of India power for all, 24/7, affordable power, sustainable power, environment-friendly power, is something now we can visualize happening by 2019, 3 years ahead of schedule. The village electrification program, which the Prime Minister actually announced on 15th August 2015, will be done in 1,000 days. So target becoming 1st May 2018. And honestly, we didn't know anything about it. I was also sitting in the audience when he made that announcement, and I was looking and listening to him, and I said, I didn't even know that we have to do this. And these were the villages which we had assessed are really difficult to reach out to. But I'm happy to share with you, the team is so committed. And several times people have very wrong impressions about government officers and government servants. In my mind, they are fantastic. They have a tremendous ability to perform. You have to empower them, you have to hold them accountable, monitor their work, but trust them also. An occasional pat in the back is always welcome. And admonishment, if they don't do it right, is also taken on the chin if you do it fairly. And I'm glad to tell you, we'll be actually able to complete the rural electrification program, reaching electricity to the villages 1 year ahead of schedule, by 1st of May 2017. And I didn't decide that. My team on their own decided we'll do it by 1st of May 2017. And then we'll use the next 365 days to reach it to every home in these villages. So that something which has never been done in India before. Rural electrification always was, government just takes power to the village and then let each one fend for themselves, apply. Whenever the state government decides they'll give you power. We thought that these are the states which have been most affected. They are the ones who have suffered the most because of not having power. I mean, imagine, can any of you think of a life for years and decades without electricity at home? Or our children being able to study and reach the heights where each one of you or your children would have reached without internet connection, without electricity and all of that. So I think it's a debt this nation owes to those people. And we're going to try and fulfill it by making sure that they are the ones who get assured power first before any other part of the country. And by 2019, I'm fairly confident we'll be able to take power to all the homes in the country. Of course, we'll need the state government support, but in any case, the way things are going, gradually more and more states are getting rid of corrupt and inept administrations, and good governments are coming into place. So I'm quite confident that the states will certainly look at the welfare of the poor, welfare of the people, make sure power reaches the nook and corner of the country. And this government stands committed to ensuring that that promise made to the people of India is fulfilled in its entirety, is fulfilled honestly, fulfilled on time, and fulfilled to make sure that the poor, that the farmers, that the deprived sections of society don't have to ever look at electricity as a luxury, but can take it as a given, as an assured utility, as an assured part of their life. I'm very confident the foundational changes that have happened in the last 2 years, not only in the power or coal sector, but across the government of India, all of these factors will conspire to help us achieve the aspirations, meet the dreams of the people of India. 2 years give us a lot of satisfaction, but also open up so many more opportunities, so many more ideas, so many more plans to be executed, that we realize that it's not only miles to go, but possibly leagues to cover before we can really rest on our laurels. Thank you very much for this patient listening. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. But my submission at the end of the day is that India is waiting to come out of the shadows of the past, is now poised for taking off from here. It's at the cusp of a truly huge economic revolution. And to my mind, those who don't come to India, those who miss the bus today, will regret that they missed the biggest investment opportunity of your or my lifetime. India is open to business. India provides the world's largest business opportunity. Take it if you're smart enough. Miss it at your own peril. I'm not being arrogant. It's just truly what I genuinely believe after my travels across the world, my own engagement with different parts of the world. India is at the cusp of an economic revolution. Right time to come to India, right time to be in India, right time to participate in this great growth story. Thank you.